Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Garrison McDaniel, and we have a great show for you guys today, as this is our Friday show. So we'll be wrapping up the games from this weekend and then looking on to the weekend. Our first game that we're going to be talking about in the first segment, of course, is that Thursday game between the Oilers, between the Oilers and the Stars. That was the Wednesday game. Thursday game would be the Rangers and Panthers. That's our second segment today. I know the days. It's all blending together right now with these playoffs. All these games have been so great. The third segment we'll be talking about the hockey calendar and if there is a problem, as they announced today, the Stanley Cup final schedule, and now we're looking at it. And these days are moving very closely together, especially when you look at the off-season dates as well. So we'll talk about all of that in the third segment. Our fourth segment today, we'll be talking about the AHL and the Calder Cup semifinals that just got underway last night. There are four great teams in there that I want to talk about. And then our fifth and final segment will be me previewing the three games ahead of the weekend and my predictions for those three games. But before we get into all that, as always, if you would like to help support the show even more than you guys already do, if you could use the GSMCpodcast.net tips and donations link, that would be greatly appreciated. You guys could put a question there, and I'll put the question at the top of your list. Make sure that I read it, and it builds a greater community bonding for us and you guys. So with that all being said, and as I struggle to talk here, we're going to get right into our first segment, talking about the Oilers and the Stars, as the Oilers were able to dominate the Stars after a pretty disappointing pretty disappointing first half to the first period by the Edmonton Oilers. They got off to a slow start in this one. The Dallas Stars go up 2-0 very early in this one, and then Oilers 5 unanswered goals. Fire back in this one, and they are able to win this one, making it a 2-2 series tie going to this Game 5 that is currently ongoing tonight. As always, I keep you guys up to date with the scores that are going on based on the time of the live stream that we do this podcast. These games are happening as I do it. And right now, we see the Oilers ahead of the Stars, 1-0 in that game. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins got a power play goal for the Edmonton Oilers. Funnily enough, that was my biggest factor for the Oilers going into this game and going into the rest of the series. They need to start producing on the power play, which they just haven't. They had not scored a power play goal up until the first goal of this game, and that was a big red flag for me because they had such a great power play. Their power play was, and we didn't stop talking about it, it was around 45% for the first two series of this playoffs. And now they slowed down in this series, didn't get a single goal on north of 10 attempts here against the Dallas Stars. But a power play goal in Game 5 is a great way to start that one and is very promising. It's Ryan Nugent-Hopkins with the goal in that one. But going back to Thursday in this Game 4 between the Dallas Stars and the Edmonton Oilers, a little bit of the game breakdown. Wyatt Johnston opened the scoring with an absolute snipe over Stuart Skinner. Stuart Skinner had a rough start to this game, as has been, his story of this playoff so far. It has been very disappointing for Stuart Skinner, but we'll see if he can kind of bounce back. Hopefully, Stuart Skinner is able to help out the Edmonton Oilers more than he hurts the Edmonton Oilers, he has been the problem for this team this entire postseason. We talk about it so often. He is one of the worst goaltenders in the expansion era in a postseason. And it just continues. And it looked like it was going to continue in a horrible way as he let in two of his first six shots faced. At a point in this game, had a 6.67 save percentage. That is horrible. So was able to bounce back in this one. That's really great to see. But not before the Stars doubled their lead with an Issa Lindell shot. This wasn't Stuart Skinner's fault. It was a shot from Issa Lindell that's going to go 5 feet wide, but it hits Darnell Nurse's rear end and ricochets into the back of the net. That's just such an unfortunate goal for Stuart Skinner. There's nothing he can do there. He's giving that goal up 10 out of 10 times. So, you can't predict that happening. You can't predict the ricochet off of your own defenseman's rear end. But nonetheless, it happens. It's fine. He bounces back from that, though. From that point on, he doesn't let up another goal in this game. So very impressive what Stuart Skinner was able to do here, able to turn it around, put those 2 early goals behind him, and plays very good hockey down the stretch in this game. The Oilers gave the Stars a taste of their own medicine in this one, as it was in Game 3 that the Edmonton Oilers go up 2-0, and the Dallas Stars were able to fight back with 3 goals unanswered in the second period. This one, the Oilers do it a little bit earlier. It's the first period. The Oilers were able to make the comeback in, down 2-0. Then it goes Ryan McLeod with a goal for the Edmonton Oilers that opened it up off of a rebound. Ryan McLeod got the rebound off of a Corey Perry and Darnell Nurse assist. So it's Corey Perry's first assist of the postseason. It's very impressive, or not very impressive. That is very important. Seeing that production from your fourth line is going to be important for this Edmonton Oilers team. And Darnell Nurse's third assist of this postseason. Not an offensive defenseman by any means, but you're looking for him to do a lot more than 3 assists. It's been disappointing, especially playing on the line with Evan Bouchard, who has been so great offensively. Speaking of Evan Bouchard, he gets a goal here with a very, very impressive McDavid assist. I would be shocked if he didn't mean to do this. It was Connor McDavid coming down the wing. Evan Bouchard's on the far side. Connor McDavid sees that he cannot make a pass to Evan Bouchard, so what he does was he takes a shot low, and you could tell he takes a shot low on purpose, and it goes off of Jake Ottinger's pad right to Evan Bouchard, and Evan Bouchard tucks it away nicely from the far side there. Very, very impressive by Connor McDavid. You could really tell he does it. The reason I say you could tell that he does it because he shoots at the low pad. Usually if Connor McDavid is coming down the wing and is going for a goal, he's going to shoot in the upper half of the net. He's going to elevate the puck at least a little bit. He's clearly going for that low pad on Jake Ottinger to get the puck to slide across, or maybe a five-hole goal. Either one would have been good for the Edmonton Oilers, and this one, definitely the Evan Bouchard goal, was a nice was a welcome, part of this game. The Edmonton Oilers go into the second intermission now tied instead of down 2-0. Such an impressive turnaround that they were able to do. Very, very. It says a lot to their mental fortitude. It is huge for them to be able to do that. We were talking about how that Dallas Stars comeback could have been very it could have been just a death wish for the Edmonton Oilers. You go up 2-0 home ice on Game 3, then give up 3 unanswered, fight back, and then go and give up their fourth and fifth goal like that in the third period. I mean, you had that game and you had the comeback, and you were able to, put a valiant effort into that one, and they were just not able to get that win. So very unfortunate for the Edmonton Oilers in that Game 3, going down 2-1. But in this one, they show a lot here, especially going down 2-0. You have that bad comeback in the first game of this home set, and then you give up 2 early goals in the second game. That could get very scary for you, especially going down 3-1, going back to Dallas. But they're able to fight back here, and it's in large part from a Matthias Janmark shorthanded goal from Connor Brown. They combine for a cross crease breakaway, shorthanded goal, and then 1 minute later, it's Leon Draisaitl who finally gets back on the score sheet. He scored the opening goal in this series, hasn't been seen on the score sheet since, and he's back in a big way. Gets assisted by Zach Hyman and Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid has been lights out in the past few games, and he is the first player I would love to highlight in this one. 3 assists in this game, 5 shots on goal for 3 points. He was all over the ice. This guy doesn't need a score to make a difference for his team. It's very reminiscent of, and this is a little bit of helmet scouting, very reminiscent of what we saw Wayne Gretzky do with his teams. Yari Curry and Mark Messier were beneficiaries of how fantastic Wayne Gretzky was, just being able to assist on so many goals, especially in the playoffs. But for Connor McDavid now, he's doing the kind of same things that Gretzky do when he was on his tear. So very, very impressive from Connor McDavid. 3 assists in this game. He already has an assist in this game 5. I mean, what more can you say about him? He now is the points leader in the playoffs. We were talking about how fantastic of a playoffs Leon Draisaitl was having. Now Connor McDavid is the one leading the way for the Edmonton Oilers, and is the best player on planet Earth for a reason. It's really not a dispute anymore. There's been times in recent memory where you could talk about a Nathan MacKinnon, you could talk about maybe a Nikita Kucherov, but it absolutely is Connor McDavid, and this playoff run is showing that. So the Edmonton Oilers have a 4-2 lead going into the third period, and then they were able to shut it down. Large part from this guy. He finally gets on this sheet on my top 2 players in the game, and it's very impressive. Stuart Skinner has not had a good postseason. He's actually had an abysmal postseason. It costed the Edmonton Oilers on plenty of occasions. You have right now the top 4 leading point getters in the playoffs. You should be by far and away winning these games, but they're not doing so because of this man. So to get a performance like this out of him, where you're kind of winning because of him and not in spite of him, is very, very important for the Edmonton Oilers. 20 saves on 22 shots against, an above 900 save percentage in the playoffs is always going to be welcomed, always going to be needed, really. We're talking about a 27 saves on 30 shots against is what you really want to see. That's your 90% save percentage. He does a little bit better here. So impressive work by Stuart Skinner. He puts in a good shift on this game and really helps the Edmonton Oilers. Now we got Game 5 that is currently ongoing. The Game 5 as the Edmonton Oilers take a 2-0 lead. It's another power play goal for the Edmonton Oilers. When it rains, it pours. 2-0 Edmonton now against the Dallas Stars in Dallas. That is a huge goal for them to get. Second power play goal in this game. That came 1 minute and 6 seconds into the period. That's really rough to see for the Dallas Stars. 2-0. That's been the kind of tale of the last few games here. So let's see if the Dallas Stars can make another 2-goal comeback here in the second period. So power play goal by the Edmonton Oilers as I keep an eye on that game. Now in their Game 5, up 2-0. That's huge for them. As I said, or as I talked about in my shorts that I made a little bit earlier, the team that wins a Game 5 goes on to win the series 80% of the time in a 2-2 series going into the Game 5. So we're going to be talking about that when it comes to the Rangers and Panthers in our second segment. But right now, the Edmonton, and they score again, 3-0 now. Philip Broberg scores for the Edmonton Oilers. It is 3-0. We're gonna go to our second break before another goal, or we're gonna go to our first break before another goal breaks out in this game. So that'll wrap it up for the Edmonton Oilers. Game 4 is what we were talking about. Game 5 is currently ongoing as I keep you guys updated to that. When I come back, we'll be talking about the Rangers Panthers Game 5.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, right, welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We're talking about the Rangers-Panthers Game 5 recap as we move on from the Edmonton Oilers. I'd love to remind you guys that if you have any questions that you would like for me to read out loud live on air, you can go ahead and use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. That would put your questions on the screen, and I'll read them out loud live on air. As we go into talking about the New York Rangers versus the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers take a 3-2 series lead in this one, and as I mentioned in the previous segment, the team that goes on to take a 3-2 series lead wins the series at an 80% clip. They showed that stat on the broadcast when it was the third period and the Panthers were up, and I think that it is very important to note. Of course, it's a little bit easier for the Rangers to make this comeback than it might have been for the Panthers to make the comeback if the Rangers were to win this one, because you have that Game 7 at home. So you just need to really win that Game 6, and then you're favored in that Game 7 at home for the Rangers. But this series is absolutely coming down to it. We now have a Game 6, as of course was promised to us from that 2-2. Now Panthers are the one that have the Rangers with their backs up against the wall. Very, very impressive stuff from the Florida Panthers in this game. Was able to really control it kind of the entire way. I compared this game to, I don't know if any of my viewers really watch baseball, but in the 2011 NLDS Game 1 between Chris Carpenter and Roy Halladay, these are the two starting pitchers for the Philadelphia Phillies and the St. Louis Cardinals at the time. Chris Carpenter went 9 innings pitched with 0 run ball, and Roy Halladay went 8 innings pitched on 1 earned run ball. And this is kind of what I'm comparing, and trust me, it makes sense here. I'm comparing Igor Shesterkin to Sergei Bobrovsky in this game to that. Chris Carpenter being Sergei Bobrovsky being pretty much perfect the entire way. Roy Halladay being Igor Shesterkin, 8 innings pitched, 1 earned run. What more can you do? And I'm going to say that in this one for Igor Shesterkin, what more do you want this guy to do? He lets in 2 goals on 36 shots. Of course, the Panthers get an empty net goal in this one. That's not against Igor Shesterkin's stat. That's why it is technically 3 goals on 37 shots against. So take out the goal and the shot, and it's 2 goals on 36. For this game, Sergei Bobrovsky is just playing, just for this series. I mean, what more can I talk about? This Sergei Bobrovsky is playing vintage Sergei Bobrovsky hockey. I haven't seen anything like this since the 2019 playoffs in that sweep against the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's playing lights out, and he played very well last postseason, but nothing to this extent. Going into the game breakdown a little bit, you have Chris Kreider opens the scoring in the second with a shorthanded goal breakaway for the New York Rangers. This was Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad combining for a goal. This is these two players' first points of this entire series. A lot of people, a lot of pundits, or a lot of analysts were talking about how these two really need to step it up for the New York Rangers if they want to, win the series. And they do in this game and still lose. It's funny how hockey works out in it. Chris Kreider, though, finally breaks through. He helped the New York Rangers beat the Carolina Hurricanes, of course, getting that third period hat trick in Game 6. And now we're seeing him kind of break out in this series. He likes to wait until late in the series to break out. So hopefully for the Rangers in Game 6, he can continue to play good hockey. But it's quickly matched from Gustav Forsling, and this was kind of the sentiment in this game. The Florida Panthers were just kind of quick to match the New York Rangers in anything that they did. The New York Rangers scored, the Panthers got 2 quickly. The Rangers, started playing well on the power play. The Panthers' penalty kill started to step up. The Rangers were starting to enter the zone very impressively, and then the forwards would get a good forecheck and break out of that. It was just back and forth hockey. The Panthers just played kind of one step ahead of the New York Rangers in this game. It was so impressive to see from the Florida Panthers, this team is going up against the juggernaut, right? they're going up against the President's Trophy winner. They're going up against, and of course the Florida Panthers were favored from the Vegas lines going into this series. But I don't think anybody really has the Florida Panthers being a favorite over the New York Rangers. I just think that the Panthers looked really, really good against the Boston Bruins, and the Rangers kind of slipped a bit against the Carolina Hurricanes. That's why I thought those lines were set the way that they were. And now we're kind of seeing that the Panthers are a really, really good hockey team. Going to the Stanley Cup final last year, one game away from going back to it now. So the Florida Panthers are playing some really good hockey, really played good counter hockey in this game. So Gustav Forsling from Sam Bennett and Ekblad ties up this game in the second period, like 5 minutes after that Chris Kreider goal. And then Anton Lundell, a minute after that, scores, puts the Panthers up 2-1. And then it's Sam Bennett on an empty net to get the Panthers at a 3-1 advantage. It is a Alexis Lafreniere goal that cuts the lead with 50 seconds. As they still have the empty net. The Rangers really were looking to get, they really had to get 2 after that empty net by the Panthers. So unable to do it. And it's in large part from the efforts of Sergei Bobrovsky. He is the first star of the night. Sergei Bobrovsky, 25 saves, 27 shots against, 9.3. It was like a 9.26 save percentage, but rounds up to a 9.3 save percentage. Very, very impressive from Sergei Bobrovsky, shutting it down, lights out hockey. One of these goals came 50 seconds left in the game as well after they were already up 3-1. So, little garbage time goal there from Alexis Lafreniere. But it counts on the score sheet just the same. And very, very impressive hockey from Sergei Bobrovsky here. You really gotta, tip your cap to this guy, as he is the reason the Florida Panthers are in the position that they are. I might go as far as to say that. I talked about him being like the Chris Carpenter of the Florida Panthers here. Chris Carpenter is a huge part of that World Series winning Cardinals team in 2011 and in 2006. So Sergei Bobrovsky, very, very impressive hockey that he's playing. Lights out, absolutely. I mean, that's the word that you have to use to describe it. 25 saves on 27 shots against here, and it's not like these were bad shots. The New York Rangers have, by widely considered, the best forward group in the NHL, and Sergei Bobrovsky is shutting that down. I mean, you're rolling 3 lines deep of just some of the best talent in the NHL has to offer. Chris Kreider, Vincent Trocheck, Mika Zibanejad, Alexis Lafreniere, Kaapo Kakko, Alexander Wenberg. I mean, all these great forwards here. And he's just absolutely shutting it down. Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad get 2 points in this game. So, I mean, that's huge for the New York Rangers going forward. They're going to need them guys to continue to produce. Hopefully, they can continue to produce for the New York Rangers. But it's really the middle 6 of the Florida Panthers playing so well. We don't see an Alexander Barkov. We don't see a Carter Verhaeghe. We don't see a Matthew Tkachuk on the score sheet here. And the Florida Panthers still win. And it was kind of a comfortable win, as it's a 2-goal lead going into the final 50 seconds. So very, very impressive hockey from the Florida Panthers. They can close out the series now tomorrow night, Saturday night, in that Game 6, going back to Florida as well. I think that's when they kind of have to do it. You don't want to go back to Madison Square Garden for a Game 7. Beating the Rangers in MSG 3 times in a series is, I don't know if that's even possible. I mean, such a hostile environment. Madison Square Garden always is, so the Florida Panthers now 3-2 series lead. We talk about how devastating that definitely is. We're going to talk about how the New York Rangers need to play going into that Game 6 on the road, especially seeing if that they can, if I expect them to win that game. But before we do that, we have two segments, and then that 5th segment that I'm excited to talk about. We're going to take our second break of the night, and when I come back, we'll be talking about the lack of breaks in the hockey calendar and if it is a problem for these front offices and these players.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We're going to get right into our third segment of the night where we will be talking about the NHL and how they announced in their announcement of the Stanley Cup final schedule and what it really means going into the summer months of the hockey schedule. It is a very late Stanley Cup final. I saw on this day a few years ago. Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals was played yesterday in 2018. And we're still in Game 5 of the Western Conference Final right now. And that reminds me to take a look. It's still 3-0 for the Edmonton Oilers. But we are in Game 5 of the Western Conference Final right now. Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Final playing tomorrow. If the Western Conference Final goes the distance, as it very well can, then you will have the conference finals being played until, when would that be? January 4th would be, yes, June 4th would be the last game of the Western Conference Final. And then you have Saturday, June 8th is Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. So already a quick turnaround there, but it's also the last game of the conference final being played in June is kind of insane to me. As you know, I grew up mid-May is really when the conference finals were being played. And now it's May 31st, and we're not even close to we're a little bit close, but we're on the back half of the conference finals. Here's the problem: is you have Game 1 on June 8th, Game 2 on June 10th, Game 3 on June 13th, Game 4 June 15th, and then if necessary, 5th game is June 18th, 6th game June 21st. And 7th game, June 24th. You have a 2-day break in between 1 and 2, a 3-day break between 2 and 3, 2-day break between 3 and 4, and then, 1-day break between game 1 and 2, 2-day break between 2 and 3, 1-day break between 3 and 4, and then 2-day break going subsequently after that. Here's the problem, and here's the biggest issue, is the NHL entry draft is June 28th. Or is it... It's 3 days. Yeah, it's June 28th. 3 days after the end of the Stanley Cup Finals if it were to go to 7 games, which it definitely could. You're looking at these 4 teams. Can you tell me which is the best team out of these 4 teams? All 4 of these teams are so even, and we're seeing it in the conference final. And I definitely think we could see it in the Stanley Cup final going the distance and going to a Game 7 as well. So if it does go to a Game 7, you have that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in between. And then on that Friday is the NHL draft. And then you have the NHL draft for the next 3 days. And then you have the re-sign period. So you have the 20th, 29th, 30th of June are your draft days. And then on the 30th, and then July 1st is your re-sign period, pretty much. Although, guys are in contacts to re-sign from now on, and then starting at 12 o'clock on June 1st is your free agency period. So there is no break for these GMs. You have 3 days between the Stanley Cup final and now. So, I mean, if you're a general manager of, let's say, the Florida Panthers, they were to win Game 6, they go on to the Stanley Cup final, you go to 7 games against, let's say, the Oilers, and you're now you have to quickly turn around from winning the Stanley Cup. First off, what day do you get your parade in there? I mean, you don't, I guess, is the answer. I mean, you can't celebrate because then you had the NHL draft, which is a huge moment for all of these franchises to go and turn their page, right? So you have the NHL draft, and then you have free agency 2 days after that. I mean, you're going one after another, and then the free agency period doesn't really end. It doesn't end until really the 1st of, I would say the 1st of September is when you really don't see any more free agent names out there. All of them have pretty much found a home at that point. But mid-September is when the preseason starts. The way the NHL calendar used to be set up was by the first week of June, we're pretty much wrapped up with the Stanley Cup Finals. Then you have a 2-week break. Then there's the NHL draft pretty much early, like I think it's usually June 22nd or June 23rd, somewhere around that period. And then you have a week for re-signing guys, and you kind of have that dedicated. And then you have the free agent period after that, and then mid-September rolls around and you're ready to go. These guys don't get a break, and it kind of sucks for these front offices, especially for front offices that are still, like, these guys shouldn't be punished for being in the Stanley Cup final. Like, these guys shouldn't have to go through this just because they're playing well, right? They put together a winning squad, and this is their reward. I mean, it's a little bit of a deterrent, I guess. But, I mean, of course not. Of course, you're still in the sport to win the Stanley Cups. But it is, it sucks for these front offices having to, you're thinking of so many decisions on the fly constantly at this point. And before you were able to take 2 weeks after the playoffs to really sit down with everybody. First off, your general managers need to be talking to these scouts. And I'm pretty sure that the general managers for the Florida Panthers, Rangers, Oilers, and Stars, the last thing on their mind is drafting. Those guys are dialed into the playoffs, trying to figure out first off what pieces are working on their team right now, what pieces maybe are not. There's already talks about Capo Caco being traded in this offseason. I saw a report about that today. The Rangers are still in the playoffs. They're not even eliminated yet, and we're talking about a 4th overall pick from a couple years ago being traded out. I mean, this turnaround that we're having is insane, that we're talking about trades for these teams that are still in the playoffs. And of course, for the teams that didn't make the playoffs, for your Devils, your whatnot, like all the teams that didn't make the playoffs, they've been able to sit around. And those are the guys that, of course, need to talk to their scouts more. But these general managers that are at the top are, you can remain at the top in the NHL because the talent pool is so dispersed in the NHL. You're talking about all these players. I mean, we're talking about all these players on the New York Rangers especially. Almost all of this New York Rangers team is late-round draft picks. Artemi Panarin was undrafted. Vincent Trocheck was a third-round pick. Mika Zibanejad was a late-round pick. Chris Kreider wasn't too early in the draft. Adam Fox was a first-rounder, but I'm pretty sure it was late in the first round. And Igor Shesterkin was a later pick. I mean, we're talking about this team in the New York Rangers, how it's one of the greatest teams. None of these guys were really top-end talent, so no matter where you're picking in the NHL draft, you're able to get a player that can really help your franchise. So you're gonna want to be able to sit down with your scouts and really have long, drawn out conversations. Really, what do you see in this guy? Why is he good? What have we talked about with this guy? And you're gonna need to conduct interviews with all of these draft picks that you're gonna want to go after. Is 3 days enough to do that? I mean, could you imagine you're in the middle of a Stanley Cup final? Let's say it's June 22nd, and you're about to play in Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final. I mean, a franchise altering moment, a franchise altering game. and you're going to need to call up a potential draft pick and be like, hey, do you have time on the 25th so that I can sit down and talk to you and we can do a interview? No, I mean, you're focusing on the Game 7 that could potentially alter your franchise. And it's so unfortunate for these guys. I mean, these playoff games should end early June so that you have a 2-week period. And I'm not even saying for like these guys, I'm not calling for these guys to go to Cabo and go to vacation for these 2 weeks. I mean, they have work to do, of course. And I mean, you're making it hard for them to do that work. That's why I'm saying, you need to do interviews with these guys. You need to talk to your scouts. You need to put a game plan. You need to put a free agency plan together. You're going to need to talk to your team, talk to who you can re-sign, figure out who you can trade, think about your cap space situation. And you're doing all of that while you're in a Stanley Cup final run. I mean, it's so difficult for these for the general managers and these presidents who are currently in the playoffs. And not to mention the long wait that it's been for the teams that haven't been in the playoffs. We're talking about like a Columbus Blue Jackets team who hasn't played since mid-April, and now you're waiting 2 full months until you're getting action again. It's unfortunate. I mean, you're just kind of sitting around on your butt doing nothing, watching playoff games, I guess. I mean, Don Waddell has a lot to think about with that Blue Jackets organization, so I guess he likes the time that is being spent. But for other organizations, it's the calendar is kind of messed up, and it was at such a great spot, and then of course COVID happened, and then we had to push everything back, and we're just now getting to a point where we're kind of moving around to where it kind of fixes itself. But next year is Olympic year, so you'll have a 2-week gap in January, and then that'll push back the playoffs for that season, and it's gonna look unfortunate again. Especially, I'm excited for that. Of course, having NHL players back in the Olympics, that's of course going to be very fun to watch, but. Yeah, I mean, for these guys, it sucks for them. So we'll see how it plays out here. If it doesn't go to 7, then these guys get a week, right? Let's say the Stanley Cup Finals ends in 5 games, although I do not see that happening. I see it going farther. If it ends in 5 games, it's done June 18th, and we're not even talking about it like it's a problem. So we'll see how it plays out. But right now, just looking at it, it looks pretty bleak for these organizations. So we're going to go into our third break, and when I come back, we'll be talking about the Calder Cup, the AHL championship that's going on right now simultaneously with the Stanley Cup Finals.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. We have our fifth and final segment of the night before we send you guys off to your weekend. We're talking about the weekend's slate of games in the NHL. Right now, we have a 3-0 lead for the Edmonton Oilers on the Dallas Stars. I might give this game the Garrison seal of defeat for the Dallas Stars in this one. It's looking like the Edmonton Oilers are going to be up 3-2 heading into this weekend, with the Florida Panthers already up 3-2 in their series. The New York Rangers are in trouble here. Nothing. What else can you say about it? Talking about this Game 6 here between the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers. They first off, must-win game, of course. Backs against the wall. How will they respond? They haven't had their backs against the wall in this postseason yet. Winning 4-0 against the Capitals and then 4-2 against the Carolina Hurricanes. There is a point in this postseason that we were talking about, is this one of the greatest teams that we've seen, because they were 7-0. And there are only a handful of teams in the expansion era to have ever gone 7-0 in a postseason to start it. And the New York Rangers added their names to the list, and every other team on that list went on to make the Stanley Cup Finals. So we were talking about how, it could have been a foregone conclusion for them to make the Stanley Cup Final. And the Panthers have proven to be such a great match for them. Now, up 3-2 in the series, the Florida Panthers are going back to Florida. They are favored in this game by 170 to 142, or minus 170 for the Florida Panthers, plus 142 for the New York Rangers. That is a heavy line there. I think the implied odds of that is around 50. Is around 58%, if I'm not mistaken, is the implied odds for that, meaning the Las Vegas is giving the Panthers a 58% chance to win this game over the New York Rangers. That's rough. That is rough, and you could really understand why. First off, it's in Florida here. They've already beaten the New York Rangers on home ice twice in this series. The Florida Panthers have played some very physical, very fast hockey, and the Florida Panthers have won the last 2 games in a row in this series. For my sake, I want to see this series go to 7. So a little bit of bias in my pick here. My prediction is going to be the New York Rangers take this one 5-3 here. I think they finally get past Sergei Bobrovsky and the forwards start scoring a lot here. I think that might set them up nicely for the Game 7. Of course, I don't like the New York Rangers. I just say I would like to see them win because I want to talk about the series more, and I would love to talk about a Game 7 in this one. I think that would make for fantastic, fantastic broadcasting. So, in this series, it's been really Sergei Bobrovsky, and they haven't had an answer for the fantastic goaltender. Hopefully, for the New York Rangers, they can find a way to figure him out, to get their scoring back to where it was in the first 2 series, as they led the entire playoffs in goals for per game, and have ran into a brick wall in Sergei Bobrovsky here. So for the New York Rangers, they need to figure it out there offensively. Their defense have been amazing, and of course Igor Shesterkin has been amazing. So for the Florida Panthers, they're going to need to keep playing very fast, keep playing very physical. Their style of hockey has gotten them to this point in this series. For New York Rangers, they need to figure out how to knock them off of their style of hockey. Maybe punch back a little bit, but you don't want to feed into that physical nature of the Florida Panthers. That's when they're at their best. So it's tough. It's tough for the New York Rangers to figure out where they need to be in this series, figure out how to, figure them out before they have their foot out the door. And then they're wondering, asking questions of what happened. We had such a fantastic team. We put it all together in the regular season, but we just couldn't get it going at the same time in the postseason. And that's really what we're seeing from the New York Rangers. Artemi Panarin has been great this entire series. And then in the one game that he's not, Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad, who have been bad the entire series, were great. They need to figure out a way to get consistent team goals and to win consistently, as a team instead of winning by individual players. So that's what I'll say about the New York Rangers. I think that they will win in this Game 6, force a Game 7 here on Monday that we will get back to when we do come back on Monday. But on the other end, it is the Dallas Stars versus the Edmonton Oilers on Sunday here, as I called that Game 5 to be pretty much done and dusted. Now you have Game 6 in Edmonton for the Dallas Stars. Same thing that's going on in the Eastern Conference Final. Same thing that's going on in the Eastern Conference Final. It's going on in the Western Conference Final. It is the Edmonton Oilers up 3-2, now going back to home ice up. And I do think the Edmonton Oilers hold a little bit more advantage on home ice than the Florida Panthers do. Rogers Place has been electric all postseason. But for the Edmonton Oilers, they're getting production out of every aspect that they need to get production from. Of course, I was going to come in here and talk about how their power play has been awful in this series, and they got to get that going because their 5-on-5 is never really that great, and they can't win series 5-on-5. Well, their power play got it going. So, I mean, what do you want from this team? Better defense? Their defense has been really good. A few unlucky bounces have gone their way. We're talking about that Darnell Nurse goal that went the other way. It's very, very unfortunate. And, what are you going to do about that situation, right? So, for the Edmonton Oilers versus the Dallas Stars, you have a very evenly matched up series that has been very exciting. But it goes back to Edmonton, and you got to figure Edmonton's favored in this one. I want to say the Dallas Stars in this one. My original prediction of the series was Stars in 7. So, they win this one, I would feel really good about that original prediction. But I think the Edmonton Oilers might take this Game 6 here. And I think that this would be... If the Edmonton Oilers were to win this series, this is how they kind of have to do it. They have to win in the Game 5 and then take Game 6 back at home ice and close them out there because I'm worried about a Game 7 back in Dallas, right? You have gotten such great production out of Connor McDavid this entire series. I mean, he's been lights out. He has probably over 10 points in this series alone. He is the leading point getter in the entire playoffs with 28. And, I mean, almost all of that is in assists. He has only 4 goals, so 24 assists. Him, Evan Bouchard, Leon Draisaitl are the top 3 players in assists in the postseason. I mean, all of these stat pages are just so funny. When you're talking about goals, it's Zach Hyman and Leon Draisaitl the top 2. When you're talking about points, it's Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Evan Bouchard, and then a tie for 4th with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, another Oiler, Vincent Trocheck, and Matthew Tkachuk. And then tied for 7th, Zach Hyman. So, all... I mean, what do you want from this team? They're getting production from from their top guys and getting production heavily from their top guys. I mean, they are your by far and away leaders in the postseason in points. 4 of the top 4 players are Edmonton Oilers. I mean, what more could you want from them? Maybe a goaltender that can keep the puck out of the back of their net. But I mean, I talk so much trash about Stuart Skinner. He's been lights out in this game. The Dallas Stars have been very disappointing in the game that they're playing right now. Only 11 shots on goal in the first 2 periods. You're going to expect they take a lot of shots on net in the 3rd period. But we'll see how that plays out. With Stuart Skinner going 11 for 11, posting a shutout so far. I just said the word, so he's not going to keep it up. But very impressive from what Stuart Skinner has been able to do. Hasn't allowed a goal in, 80 minutes of hockey? Sounds about right? Yep. About 90 minutes because he gave up those 2 early goals in the first period in the Game 4 and hasn't given up a goal since. So I said that they had to go to Calvin Pickard, and I was proven wrong by the Edmonton Oilers coaching staff. It's been very impressive that they've kind of stuck with their guy, and they're kind of riding him out until he, he loses them a series. And he hasn't yet. Posting a shutout in a Game 5 in probably the most important game for the Edmonton Oilers in the postseason. What more could you want from him? Of course, he's not on any of these stat sheets for top goaltenders in the postseason, but he's still been pretty impressive for the Edmonton Oilers because they've needed him to be impressive. Of course, the forwards have been lights out. I mean, when they're scoring at an unbelievable rate. They lead all the remaining teams that are active in the postseason in goals for per game at just above a 3.6 goals for per game, only trailing the Colorado Avalanche, whose numbers are inflated from that Winnipeg Jets series, and they're not even in the playoffs anymore, so they don't count. But I mean, they're letting up a lot of goals is their problem. They let up the most goals against of any team that is still in the playoffs. The only teams that let up more are the Jets, the Kings, the Lightning, the Islanders, the Capitals. All 5 of those teams lost in the first round. Avalanche and Hurricanes are the next 2. Those teams lost in the second round. So the Oilers let up a lot of goals. And it's been very impressive what they've been able to do while also letting up a lot of goals. And it's letting up a lot of 5-on-5 goals. And that's what's disappointing for the Oilers. And that's why I'm saying I'm surprised that they can win a series 5-on-5, which is what we've seen them do for the first 4 games. And then this 5th game, they've dominated all aspects of this game. But a 93.2% penalty kill percentage, they've only allowed, 2 power play goals the entire postseason? That's so impressive. I mean, what more could you want from them there? I mean, the Oilers look so primed to win the Stanley Cup this year. They're going to have to for Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. I say that they win Game 6 as well. I'm going to give you the prediction. Sure, why not? 6-1 Edmonton Oilers. They just blow them out. They dominate the Dallas Stars, end it on home ice. That's it. That's the end of the run for Jake Onger and them boys. But that'll wrap it up for our Friday podcast for the GSMC Hockey Podcast Network. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the GSMC Podcast Network. Your support always means a lot to us. If you would like to subscribe or like the show, that would mean so much to me and so much to everybody at the show. If you want to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, we have go to GSMC Podcast Network on any of those. You will see us be able to go live on them as well. And thank you guys all once again for tuning in. And you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening and wonderful weekend.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.